So as I work through the tutorial for this particular document, this is changing the residential rental agreement. Now there's not a lot that you can do to change the structure of the document. What I'm focused on today is over here, so we've got it, these standard special conditions. So what I believe is that there should be around, I think it's maybe 8 or 9, maybe even more, standard special conditions that should be in every lease. So they're in every one of the templates. Then what you have is you have property specific ones. And the property specific will be dependent on the actual property. So it might be, for example, owners corporation rules, it might be embedded networks, it might be disclosure, an item of disclosure, there might be gas, electric, mold, there might be doesn't meet minimum standards, whatever it is specific to the property. And they're different altogether. So these ones are standard. So what I've done is I've just gone into the blank template. I've downloaded a template from Inspection Express and I've modified. So we've gone through and I'll show you here. The red is where we need to add information in through to here. But by now, by doing all of these documents, we should already have the company name specifically. Sorry, not specific. It's exactly the same as what's on the Business Licensing Authority. Your ABN should be right. You should have your logo inside of here. What I'm suggesting here is make the change there. Just call that a new tenancy, residential rental agreement new tenancy. Now, this particular document I've created for you is 52 pages. I've copied out the text from here, and then I've copied it into a Word document so we can go through the physical changes to the special conditions. Now, what I want to do is I'm going to come all the way to the back end because there's not really a lot that we can change in through here. I've made notes as to what you need to do to make sure that it's correct and are compliant. So I'm not going to do that right now, but I've made notes in here to make sure that the rental agreement is compliant, particularly around, say for example, professional cleaning, so that we've got the receipts and those sorts of things. So I've made a number of notes in here, worthwhile going through and reading them. So I'm just going to come through to the special conditions right at the end, which I think is 87 or 88. Okay, so 80, 87, 88. Okay, so I'm going to come through this page here as well. And as I said, I've duplicated this over here, so you know exactly what it is that we need to copy in. And I'm just going to keep coming down through to here into the 80s. There are a number of provisions in here, so we just can't change. And I would encourage you to read the document. So, for example, inside of the rental agreement, it's not great. Inside of there, it says that one of the ones is that the renter can't wear stiletto heels. Now, I don't know whether you would actually get that covered through VCAT, and I don't know whether that actually breaches the provisions. So I've put a number of provisions inside of here. Actually, I'm not sure where I've got it, but there's a number of provisions with specific to the Act where you can't add particular. Come back in through to here. You can't add particular prohibited terms. I think it's section 27. I've noted them inside of here as well. Let's just talk about the renter assignment fee. So that's the very, very first one that I think needs to be added into every lease, but only if you've got it updated in your management authority. So if it's updated in your management authority that you can charge a rental provider, then you can add this in. If it's not, first thing you need to do is update your management authority. Now, the previous documents that we've created for the management authorities, they have the renter assignment fee. You put in whatever fee you are charging. Whatever is in your management authority is what needs to come into the lease. So don't just copy the $220. Copy the amount. I might actually just make that red. Copy the amount that is inside of your authority, and you might have different amounts for different owners. So whatever is inside of your authority needs to be duplicated directly into here. If you're using different figures for different owners, then you need to make sure this gets changed in the special conditions every time. Otherwise, just run with a fixed fee. $220 seems to be fairly fair. Now, what I've done is I've also put inside of here the provisions for the Act. So my recommendation is that becomes your heading here. Then you've got your bullet points, so A through to F there. And then down below, you might not be able to right margin those, but down below there, put the specific sections of the Act. If you want it to be overly officious, then go and grab the link from the Residential Tenancies Act and then add that in there as well. But you can't then ever be accused of not providing enough information. The whole area here is around disclosure. So the whole thing that is going to catch a lot of agents out is the lack of disclosure. So what we're trying to do is put more information in here than is probably required. The renter-initiated break lease transfer fees. Okay, so let's just have a look at that one. That's the old break lease fee. Now, you were never ever allowed to just go and have a fixed amount. So the one of the sections of the Act, which is here, 84, residential rental provider cannot ask for a fee for giving consent. So you can't go and have, and I still see it now, you can't go into put onto your fee sheet, even if it's in the lease, doesn't mean it's accurate and enforceable. And if it's invalid, therefore it may actually deem the entire lease invalid or open you up to a potential fine or risk of a fine. Okay, so you can't just go in there and run a fixed fee. The agency wants to charge $200 for advertising and $1,000 for letting fee, for example, for a break lease. You can't do that. It needs to be whatever the owner was charged at the commencement of the lease, then working on either a pro rata for the letting fee and or full amounts for the advertising board and ticket or database checks. So part of the provision is this. The first thing we need to be able to do is within the Act and the regulations, it states that you need to be able to state what the formula is. So here's the formula. New tenancy letting fee equal to pro rata of remaining agreement of fixed term. Okay, so that's that. Of remaining agreement of fixed term. Okay, so that's sitting in there now. So that's what the letting fee would be, not a fixed amount. Now, we don't know what the amount's going to be when we're creating a lease. So we can't tell the tenant. But what we must do is, or the renter, what we must do is disclose what the owner was charged, the rental provider, what they were charged as part of the letting. So for example, if a person was to move into a property, 365-day lease, and they were to move into the property on day one, decide to move out, there's 364 days remaining, the tenant can quickly calculate that the letting fee was, if it was $400 a week and it was 2.2 weeks, $880. So they can quickly calculate they've got 364 days remaining on a 365-day lease, and it was $880. Divide that by 364, that gives you your letting fee. So that's the way in which we need to be able to explain this and disclose it. Now, this is where a lot of agencies are going wrong. They might be putting in their letting fee formula, but they're not putting in the physical amounts. So, and now the other point to here is that this is going to change depending on every owner as to what they were charged. So every rental amount will be different, and most owners have different fees and fee structures. Very rare that I see an office that has 500 properties and all owners pay the same letting fee. So there's variations in there, and of course you've got variations of rent. So every one of those needs to be modified before it's sent out. Really important that you don't just create this as a template and then send it out and not train the leasing, VAs, property managers, whoever's doing this, that before you send it out, in addition to making all the other changes, you also need to make sure that we're adding in whatever the letting fee, advertising and board. And now if there was no board, then that doesn't get charged. No advertising doesn't get charged, and so forth. The one that you need to be aware of is where you've got an owner that doesn't pay, for example, and this happens a lot. So business development, what they'll do is they'll go out there and they'll say, we'll give you a free board, free advertising for the first let. Problem with that is that if 6 months later the tenant leaves, the owner's going to be charged, but you can't recover that money from the tenant because they paid zero at the beginning. So you're better off not giving away those sorts of things that you can't recover later on. Same with letting fees and so forth. So if you've got an owner that doesn't pay, pays a really low let fee and no advertising, no board, you can't recover that amount because the specific intent here is that the renter needs to reinstate the owner to the same position they're in, not profit, not loss. Hopefully I've explained that well. So we've got all those clauses here, and then you put the section in underneath. So they're two that are very much across all tenancies. So that's both for break lease and also the renter assignment. Now the property cleaning. This is one that a few agents still feel that they can try and sneak through with regards to property cleaning and or steam cleaning. If I was to go back through 100 leases, I think 100 leases would have that the tenant's obligated to pay to steam clean the property at the conclusion of the tenancy, which we all know is not correct. You can't enforce that. You can request it, but you can't enforce it. So the Act is really clear now, and that is that the tenant's not required to improve the property. The tenant's only improved to make good to the same condition that it was in beforehand. So let's just run through this and follow the bouncing ball. Tenant moves in January, and their property didn't have professional cleaning and professional steam cleaning. But the lease says that they need to actually steam clean and professional cleaning. That's invalid. So you can't do that. What you must do is if the tenant moves in January and their tenant prior or the owner has paid for professional cleaning or there's been professional cleaning undertaken. So this is cleaning, property cleaning, steam cleaning of floor coverings, maybe window furnishings, for example, drapes, curtains, those sorts of things, and soft furnishings if it's furnished. And then you've also got garden maintenance and lawn mowing. So these are three areas that are all fall within the same Act, which is 27C1. So what we need to be able to do to get this put into the lease correctly, and that is, firstly, we pop it into the lease as a standard special condition. Now, it's really only if it's applicable. So what we must do is we must disclose to the tenant beforehand, to the renter, that the property was professionally clean. We then need to provide a copy of the receipt. So it's important that those receipts are detailed and documented. And we also need to then make sure that we're either attaching that through into the condition report and or giving the receipt to them somehow prior to them taking occupation of the property. So you can't give it to them 3 weeks later. It needs to be before they move into the property. And you would note that on the special conditions of you'd note that in the condition report, and also we're noting it in the special conditions of the lease. So what an owner can't do is enforce a renter to go and clean or improve the property. So important to make sure we're supplying the receipts. This goes for property cleaning, and it goes for steam cleaning, and is also applicable for garden maintenance and or lawn mowing. So that's really important there as well. Now, the next provision, which is one that catches a lot of agencies off guard, and I've not seen an agency yet that's complying with this one, and this is the smoke alarm maintenance and renter safety activity instructions. Okay, so within the regulations, the rental provider is required to provide the renter prior to the commencement of the tenancy the following information. Information about how each smoke alarm works in the renter premises, information how to test the smoke alarm, and information around their obligation not to tamper with it. These are written specifically in the regulations. So what I've done is I've now gone and created a special condition specifically for this because, as I said, I've not seen in all of my journey for the last year and a bit, I've not seen an office that actually has this and is doing it. So it is a breach. So ideally, by putting this into your agreement, one, you're going to stand apart from everyone else, but you're most certainly going to be complying. So the first thing here I just want to bring to your attention is this. So what I've done is in a Trello board, or you can actually download them from here. Smoke alarm solutions. Doesn't matter whether you use them or use another company. It does not matter at all. Who you use for your smoke detector inspections is not important. What you need to be able to do is provide the renter a series of manuals and operational guidelines as to how they can make these changes, as in test them and also change the battery, and also their obligation not to tamper with them. So what I've found is Smoke Alarm Solutions has a great website where they've got, I think it's 11 user manuals. I've downloaded those. My recommendation is to pop those onto your website, save them, and then have a little blurb around here. For those of you that are looking at the Trello boards that I create, I've got them written into a Trello board, so exactly what to put into your website. It'll be in the tenant section of the website, and it'll be on your website, and it would be ABC Real Estate inside of there / smoke alarm manuals or something like that would be where your website is. Please do not put into the agreement the agency website, insert agency website. Please don't do that. That is specifically here. I might even make that yellow. That is specifically there so that it's giving you an indication that it needs to go onto your website. Now, what you can do is you can grab that information from here. I've also gone and downloaded, so I've found some smoke alarm information from Victorian Fire Brigade, from the CFA, and the CFA here, they've got smoke alarm maintenance, smoke alarm information, and also the Victorian Building Authority. So what we're doing now, we're actually complying. As I said, I've not seen other agencies do this because they've not known how to go about. Every property has different smoke detectors. So we're providing 11 different manuals, and we're providing the same manuals that Smoke Alarm Solutions are using, and we're providing them a whole range of other information. I think if we were to be audited by Consumer Affairs and they saw that we were giving this a shot, compared to others who are doing nothing, I think that we would still be okay. Okay, so we've got that information in through to here, and then what we've done is we've gone in and we've put what the obligation for a renter is. They need to test the unit, sit that in through to there. They need to test the unit, and there's a whole range of things inside of here for them to make sure that they're following. This now becomes part of, and it's one of the regulations of safety activities. I think it might be 13 on the residential tenancy regulations. It might be, maybe not, but it's with regards to safety obligations. Now, here, you are 100% complying now with providing this information through to the renters. Okay, the next one, as a standard special condition, is additional keys and security devices. Again, this may or may not be impactful for you, or it may not be something which is important, but often a tenant will, there'll be might be 2 renters and they'll ask for a spare set of keys. You're only obligated to give 1 full set to every person that's on the rental agreement that's signed above the age of 18. So if they want additional ones, then the owner is within their rights to be able to actually charge the tenant for those. Now, often people will argue that, but it's now written in through to the agreement, and I've also put the section of the Act there as well. I've tried where possible to make it as user-friendly as possible for the renters to alleviate any disputes. Rental provider disclosure statement. This is really for the agents. I've actually gone and put this in. It's a little bit sort of cheeky because a lot of people are sending through the rental disclosure statement with attached to the rental agreement. Now, even the Inspection Express template does that. I don't believe that that is compliant. I believe that what you're doing is you're actually not complying, because the objective of the disclosure statement is to provide it through to a renter that has made their decision or is making their decision to proceed and enter into a rental agreement. So if I've sent them through the rental agreement, they may have already paid a bond, they may have already paid their first month's rent into an account. We've then created a lease and sent it off. And if we're attaching the disclosure to that and there's something that's not right, we're actually not giving that information. So my recommendation is the rental agreement needs to be sent after as a separate 2-stage. So the rental disclosure is sent once the renter has been approved. They get the disclosure along with the Consumer Affairs renting guide and your bank account details, the bond amount, first month's rent, maybe a moving guide, those sorts of things. So that's what happens for here. And what we've done is the renter acknowledges receiving an electronic copy of the signed RRP disclosure statement prior to receiving a copy of the rental agreement. Again, we're trying to secure and make the process compliant, but more importantly, really make you stand out from everyone else. Property safety regulations and authorisation is sitting inside of here with regards to smoke, electric and gas. The renter acknowledges receiving copies of the receipts if applicable and that they need to make good. And then we've got a PEC clause, so rental providers, and I've put a PEC clause in through to here, which is actually item 66 inside of the residential lease. I've made a couple of adjustments through to that one. I hope this has really helped you, and then we've got the rest of the documents inside of there, which is the standard documents. But I hope this has helped in being able to create the special conditions. Then, of course, as I said, you've got a whole series of property-specific ones whereby that needs to be added only to that lease. But these ones, I would believe, whatever there are. What have we got here? We've got, I think there's about 9 or 10 of them. I would believe if you added those into your standard tenancy agreement, that's going to help you enormously have, one, a compliant rental agreement, but more importantly, make sure you don't have any arguments down the track, particularly if you were to go to CAV, Consumer Affairs, or VCAT, those sorts of things. And the tenant was to dispute something. So we've got it really clearly in there. Best of luck with it. Hope this helps. And then a couple of other videos will be around the existing tenancies and a couple of other documents. Thanks for that.